All right, let's talk about one of the most famous and, let's be honest, controversial books ever written on strategy. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. Some people see it as this brilliant guide for navigating the world, and others see it as a pretty cynical manual for manipulation. But whatever you think, its influence is just undeniable. So today, we're going to break down its core philosophy, straight from the source. Right out of the gate, in the preface, Greene hits you with this intense quote from Machiavelli, and that really sets the tone. See, this isn't a book about how the world should be, it's a cold, hard look at how the world often is. The whole idea is that trying to be the good guy all the time, well, that idealism can actually be a dangerous thing when you're surrounded by people who don't play by those rules. According to the book, we're all living with this constant pressure. On the surface, everything has to look polite, it has to look fair. We're all expected to be transparent, to be kind, and to follow this very specific set of socially acceptable rules. And here it is, the crucial point. Greene argues that this polite surface is pretty much just a mask. Underneath all of that, the same old ruthless power dynamics that have existed forever are still at play. And if you take that outward appearance at face value, you're really just setting yourself up to be outmaneuvered by people who understand the real game. So to explain this, Greene uses this really great historical analogy of the old aristocratic courts. These courtiers, they had to be the absolute picture of elegance and grace, but at the same time, they were locked in this silent, constant battle for influence. Every single move was calculated. He actually calls it a form of civilized war, and his argument is that our modern offices and social circles, they aren't all that different. And this really illustrates that conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got the face we're supposed to show the world, civilized, decent, fair. But on the other side, you've got what Greene calls the cauldron of dark emotions that's always bubbling just beneath the surface. Things like greed, envy, lust. And the game of power, in his view, is all about navigating that hidden reality without breaking the polite illusion. So what the 48 Laws of Power is the missing instruction manual. It's basically a collection of timeless rules for understanding and playing this hidden game, all drawn from thousands of years of human history. So what do these laws actually look like? How do they work in practice? Let's dive into a few key examples from the playbook itself to really get the logic. We're going to start right at the beginning. The very first law, law number 1, this really sets the stage for the entire book. It's not about being aggressive, but about the subtle art of managing how people see you and managing their egos, especially the people above you. This one is a classic, and it cuts right to the heart of what this book is all about: human psychology and the deep-seated insecurities that drive people, especially people in power. Now, the key thing to get here is that this isn't about being bad at your job. It's about strategy. The core idea is that if you make your bosses feel insecure, even by accident, you'll trigger their envy and they will find a way to get rid of you. So the path to power, according to this law, is to make them look good. That way, they see you as an indispensable asset, not as a threat. All right, so from managing your superior's ego, the book pivots to another huge foundational concept of power. And this is one that exists entirely in other people's minds, but it can completely determine your fate. Greene calls reputation the cornerstone of power, and it makes sense, right? It's the filter that everyone sees you through, and a good one can do half your work for you before you even walk into a room. So this law basically treats your reputation as both your greatest shield and your most powerful weapon. If you have a solid reputation for being trustworthy, or even for being ruthless, it can make people want to work with you and, just as importantly, fear working against you. And on the flip side, the law advises that one of the best ways to neutralize an opponent is to attack their public image and let social pressure do the rest. Okay, so we've talked about subtle laws, about public perception, but our final example takes a much more direct, almost confrontational approach to the idea of action itself. Now, this one might feel like it totally contradicts the other laws we just talked about, but it's all about the psychological power that comes from being decisive and confident. The logic here is pretty simple. Hesitation looks like weakness. It makes other people doubt you, and it shows you're not even confident in your own plans. Greene argues that a mistake you make with audacity is actually way more forgivable and easier to fix than all the problems that come from just being too timid to act. Boldness itself just commands respect. It projects an aura of power. Okay, so here's the thing. You might hear all of these laws and think they're pretty cynical, maybe a little unsettling. But Greene's big ultimate argument is that you don't actually get to choose whether you participate in this game or not. And this is probably one of the most challenging ideas in the whole book. He talks about this person he calls the non-player. You know, the type, the person who makes a big show of being above it all, saying they're too honest or moral to be interested in power. Well, Greene argues that this itself is often the most subtle and effective power strategy there is. So Greene asks us to look at these really common tactics through a totally different lens. He takes actions that we might see as virtuous and reframes them as clever power moves. I mean, think about it. Is showing weakness really being powerless, or is it a tactic to get sympathy and make your opponents lower their guard? Is claiming perfect honesty just a way to seem noble so that your arguments are more persuasive? And that's really the final provocative thought the book leaves you with. It forces you to look again at your own actions and the actions of everyone around you. From this point of view, the game of power is always being played. So the only real choice you have is whether you're going to understand the rules and act as a conscious player, or stay unaware and just become a piece in someone else's game.